Are you ready to get unstuck from your repetitive daily routine, tap into your mind and body's internal cues, and just discover the things in this world that will lead you to your life's greatest potential? Me too. I'm glad you're here today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Greatest Potential podcast. My name is Taylor, and before I get into today's episode, I just wanted to give an exciting announcement. I'm finally recording on my mic in my apartment. I am not in the car for this episode, so exciting upgrade. Hopefully the quality sounds good, but anyways, to get that out of the way, what we're going to be discussing today is the most wonderful time of the year, according to the Christmas songs, but according to literally all of humanity, the worst time of the year. And that is winter, which inevitably leads to the winter blues or the seasonal depression or whatever adjectives or descriptions you use to describe the absolute hibernation that happens in the cold and gross months. So just to give a little context clues, I live in Chicago, and we have spent probably 3 out of the past 7 days in a wind chill below zero, aka negative degrees. So it's disgusting. I can't spend more than like 5 minutes outside with any piece of skin exposed, or else it's numb and I can't feel it. And most of the time that's my nose, and then I'm sniffling as soon as I get to my next destination, and it's just gross. And I feel sleepy. I feel like a literal hibernating animal, like I'm eating everything in sight. I have no energy. I have to force myself out of the house, and I really just don't feel like doing anything. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, especially my fellow northern livers, because we get this for probably like a good 4 months. So we know that January is just the beginning of this downhill spiral of winter weather. But really, I feel like the issue with the seasonal depression and the winter blues is just we lose everything that makes us feel like a productive and healthy human. Like, we're stuck inside. We don't get that natural sunlight. We don't get as much access to fresh produce, especially when you live in the north and you're importing everything from other areas in the country or even other countries in many cases. You're not walking around as much. You're just not socializing because you don't want to go out into all the elements. So there's so many factors that just make us feel less good and just gross during this winter period of the year. And I personally have been battling this a lot lately. I think it was basically since New Year's wrapped up. I was riding that high of the motivation of the new year. I was so excited to get into my goals and start working on my new resolutions and everything like that. And then suddenly it's 0 degrees outside and I lose all will to do anything productive. And thankfully I had some friends that I was able to discuss it with, and they got me back to feeling kind of like a normal human. But it was just that sudden lack of motivation and interest in everything that can be kind of scary. And then it makes you realize, oh yeah, it's winter. I've got a long ride ahead of me. So really, with this seasonal depression and the winter blues and everything, I did a little bit of research because I was like, okay, I know in the last episode I talked about let's not self-diagnose ourselves with anything, but to realize such a dramatic difference in the way you feel, you gotta have a reason, right? So I was doing a little research around, and I found out that technically with this seasonal depression or seasonal affective disorder, it has like official name, but I just kind of call it the winter blues. Like, it's not that deep, but it kind of is. But I found out that women are actually more affected. And that makes so much sense because women have a lot of different hormones going on in our bodies consistently. It's hard to be a girl out here in the winter. What can I say? But with all that being said, it kind of led me to start thinking about how am I supposed to be living my greatest potential if I'm just so bored and sad and unmotivated throughout the winter months? Like, there's got to be a better solution. And then I started thinking about how in past years I've handled this. And granted, this is my 3rd winter in Chicago, so I'm getting kind of used to this whole back half of the year when the emotions are not the best and the body isn't feeling the greatest. I'm getting used to kind of some ways that I've managed this and that I've noticed helps me not feel like such a bum, I guess. So I'll just be kind of listing. I have 6 main recommendations that can kind of help you fight through this and that have helped me feel more like myself through the winter blues. And then I have one kind of little last resort that is a little bit more fun, a little less productive or tangible, but can still help you push through when you're in the midst of this just like major seasonal depression and when it seems like there's no hope in sight for warmer days. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So the first thing to kind of combat or battle or solve these winter blues is going to be just fueling your body and listening to what you truly need. So many of us celebrate a lot of holidays toward the end of fall and the beginning of winter, such as Thanksgiving. We have Halloween kind of at that very beginning of fall. We have Christmas. Many of us have Hanukkah. Many of us celebrate New Year's Eve in January. So there's a lot of foods. There's a lot of desserts, there's a lot of snacks, and for many of us, there's a lot of alcohol being consumed in kind of those last 2 months of the year. And it's all fun and games until you try to jump back into your normal functioning routine, and then you realize, oh my God, I've been drinking 2 alcoholic beverages every night for 60 days. Maybe I should tone it back down. Or maybe you've been having Christmas cookies surrounding your kitchen for a month straight, and now you're like, wait, where's my little sweet treat? Like, I'm supposed to be eating a cookie right now. What is going on? So coming out of that kind of shift in normal routine can be hard on your body physically and also mentally, because you get so conditioned. Okay, it's at 6 p.m. We're going to play some games with the family and we're going to have a couple drinks. And then you're going back to work. You're going back to normal life and you're like, oh, I can't just grab a drink right now. Like, there's no reason to be drinking. Or same with like the desserts and the snacks. It's like, oh, I'm used to being at the parents' house, for example, and there's just a charcuterie board on the counter at all times, or there's cookies in the tin, or there's just snacks here and there that I can grab in between meals. And then you get back to quote unquote normal life in January and you're like, oh, I'm just going to be eating 3 meals today. Like, that's it. So it's really important for this transition period, especially in early to mid-January, that you allow your body to slowly get back into that routine it's used to. It's okay to want to jump right back into your 3 meals a day and stop the alcohol, but sometimes it can be harder on you mentally and physically to go from such a stark difference in your diet or the way that you're kind of living your lifestyle in a day or even in a week. So something that I've done specifically this year is I knew I was eating really crappy. I was not doing the best in terms of drinking for the end of the year. So when I got back to what I would say like normal life is after the holidays, that first week of January, I didn't really change anything. I allowed myself still to have those glasses of wine or those seltzers after I got off work or after dinner, just to kind of like wind down. I allowed myself to continue eating my little sugary snacks, or I would munch and crunch on things throughout the day and between my meals, and I would just kind of like overfill myself during my meals. And I did that for the first week. And then I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting used to my regular routine again. I can tone it back now. I can start maybe eliminating some of the alcohol, and then maybe I'll replace some of my sugary snacks with maybe a healthier sweet option, like a fruit or like an apple, I don't know, as an example. So it's definitely helped me a lot. I feel like now we're going on week 3 of January, and I feel like I'm kind of back in the swing of things again. Like, I'm eating my regular food schedule again. I'm eating my 3 full meals. I have my vitamins, my supplements, whatever, and then I'm drinking like socially occasionally on the weekends. So feeling like I finally got that back under control. But I will say the first couple days when I tried to go back into my regular like food and consumption habits, it definitely felt a little weird, and I felt cranky, and I felt almost like bad about wanting to eat my sugary snacks or drink a glass of wine or something. And then I had to reel it back in and remind myself, I've been doing this for the past 2 months straight now. I've been overeating, overindulging, and over whatever. It's okay. It's going to take my body time to get back into my normal routine, and that is okay. And very, very important, especially for the winter blues, to just listen to what your body is telling you. It's kind of bad that my body was needing and craving so many of these sugary, unhealthy snacks, but that's what I was used to, and that's what made my body feel like it was in its comfortable homeostatic state. So I had to keep doing it and weaning out slowly. So very important, especially when you're feeling down on yourself. Listen to what you want. If your body is telling you it wants to eat a whole bag of chocolate-covered pretzels, is it the best for you? No, but it's what's going to make you feel fulfilled and feel whole. And it's so important that if you're not feeling emotionally the best or physically the best, you can tune into your instinctual cues that your body's telling you and just do what you need. Your body tells you what it wants. You just have to listen to it. And I promise you will find that balance back again. You're not going to be stuck forever. Every vacation or every little holiday celebration is just temporary, and you're going to go back to your old ways in no time, so it's no big deal. Similarly with fueling your body, I also want to just touch on rest and sleep specifically. I think it's a scientific fact, or maybe a scientific noticing, I don't want to say fact if it's not true, but that in these winter months when we have less actual sunlight, especially the further from the equator that you live, you just feel like you need more sleep. There's less sunlight in the day. there's less natural energy from the sun being exposed to you, so you don't build up as much natural energy throughout the day as you would in, say, the summer or even the spring or even the fall. It's just we spend the most time without sunlight in the winter as opposed to any other time of the year. So that's why it's really important that if your body is telling you it's tired, chances are it's not just because you're being lazy. It's not just because, oh, I need to suck it up and be strong. Your body probably is actually very tired. It doesn't have as much naturally building energy through the exposure to the sun that it does in the other months. So it's okay to go to bed sooner or sleep in a little later. Especially with that stupid daylight savings time. I swear, as soon as daylight savings hits, I know it's just downhill from there until daylight savings comes back again. Because it's like waking up in the morning for work and it's still dark out, you don't want to get out of bed. You really just want to stay nice and cozy and cuddled in because you're like, oh, it's dark. Your body instinctually is like, oh, no sunlight, no waking up for me. And it's not your fault. It's just the way that we're hardwired as human beings to function. So that leads us into step 2 and kind of step 3 on how to kind of combat this winter blues is to incorporate the things that the natural sunlight provides to you when it's not physically there. So what I mean by this is specifically trying to incorporate, maybe it's an Alexa, or maybe it's a Hatch, one of those little like sunrise alarms, or maybe it's just a timer switch on your light bulbs in your house, but creating some type of routine or way for a light to come on when you need to be awake in the morning. So for me, for example, I have an Alexa and I have a routine set up to where during the time my alarm turns on in the morning, the lights in my bedroom actually also switch on at that same time. So not only am I hearing my alarm sound, I wake up, I open my eyes, and it's bright already in my room. Granted, it's not natural sunlight, but at least it is light and it's reminding my brain, hey, it's time to wake up. Even though outside it's dark, it doesn't look like you should be awake, it's kind of mentally telling myself that I should be awake at that time. So that has been super helpful for me. And once I decided to start creating those Alexa routines, I feel like I've been having more productive mornings year round, but specifically in the winter because I don't get that natural sunlight coming in through the window and waking me up. So that's a really, really great option. And like I said, they have those like Hatch alarm lights that gradually get brighter and kind of stimulate the sunrise. I've heard those are great. Or if you don't have any of those fancy smart devices in your home, I don't blame you. It's kind of creepy sometimes, but they also have just regular timers that you can put in your light switches in your house or things like that. Don't know anything specifically for those because I don't use them, but there's plenty of options to kind of incorporate false light into the beginning of your day to kind of help you wake up and get your brain jump started. Similarly, kind of step 3 would be to incorporate some vitamin D into your diet. Because for those that don't know, vitamin D is kind of the vitamin that is produced in our skin from the sun. So when you're exposed to natural sunlight, the rays from the sun convert into vitamin D in some scientific way in your body. And that's what kind of gives you energy and makes you feel, functioning more in the summer. And even if you do have exposure to sun in the winter, maybe you're outside, maybe you have a walking commute, for example, or maybe you bike, you're still covered in so many layers to protect you from the cold that your body is just simply not soaking up as much vitamin D when it's wintertime. It's just a known fact. So if you can supplement that in other ways, maybe you are a big whole milk person. My boyfriend Sam loves milk. It's actually humorous how much he loves milk and how much he drinks it. So he's good to go. His vitamin D levels are great throughout the year. But me, for example, I prefer almond milk and I don't get vitamin D naturally a lot through the foods I eat in my diet. So I started taking a vitamin D gummy supplement just every day. I take it year round, but it really helps, I think, in the winter months to have that additional supplement of vitamin D because I notice a major difference in my seasonal depression or my winter blues now versus when I wasn't taking it. And if you remember in a couple episodes ago, when I mentioned that internship I had that kind of drained the life out of me, it was during the end of that internship when I started experimenting with the vitamin D supplement because I was telling my coworkers just how miserable I felt all the time. And she recommended to me I try the vitamin D, and it really, really has made an impact on my general mood and how motivated I feel to exist some days. So I highly recommend vitamin D, especially in the winter months. And the nice thing about vitamin D is I don't think there's really a specific amount that you have to take to be successful or be feeling the results of it. Because I take, like I said, a little gummy vitamin D And I actually take half the dosage they recommend because I have this weird fear of like overdosing on vitamins. I don't know where it came from. Super irrational, but anyways. So I take half of the recommendation and I still really notice a positive effect. So especially if you don't have a lot of natural vitamin D occurring in your diet, totally recommend a supplement. And obviously with anything like that, you should consult a doctor if you have any concerns with medications you're on or just incorporating a new supplement into, your daily routine. But love the vitamin D. I use D3 specifically. So I don't know if there's really a difference, but I did a little bit of research when I started taking it, and I heard a lot of good things about vitamin D3. So love the vitamin D. Highly recommend. It just gives that little boost of, vitamins that you don't get naturally from the sun. So a very good option to just supplement that lack of sunlight that occurs in the winter months. So then moving on to option number 4, or trick number 4, is going to be forcing yourself to be social or do social activities. Like I mentioned when I was kind of doing the intro of this episode, I feel like I literally am a hibernating animal when it comes to the winter months and seasonal depression. Nothing in me wants to get out of my comfy little burrito blanket, and I just want to stay on the couch or stay in bed and be warm and cuddly, and I don't want to go anywhere or do anything. And I imagine a lot of people can probably relate to that. But we need social interaction. Like, we're social human beings. We're social creatures. We need to be interacting with other people like us and other just humans in general, or else we start to get a little bit of stir crazy, and that can really affect our mindset and our mentality when you have no one else to talk to or just be around. So something I've been doing specifically the past couple weeks that I really want to incorporate throughout the rest of these winter months is I've been signing up to dance classes, even if I have no desire to go dance. Because I don't. I genuinely have no desire to go dance recently. I want to stay on my bed, curled up in a blanket. That's all I want to do. But I've been forcing myself to get out and go to class because, one, even if I don't feel like I want to be around people, I know I really need it. It just fuels me. It makes me feel better. It makes me feel more sane and normal about the things I'm going through. So going to these dance classes has been literally a game changer for me. I was in a really, really low place probably the last week or so. And this week I went to 5 dance classes between rehearsal and just drop-in classes that I signed up for. And I feel drastically better. Just being around my people, talking to humans consistently, because at work I don't really get that human interaction. I'm spending 30 to 45 minutes in a given store, and then I move on to the next. So I don't really have coworkers that I see a whole lot. I don't have coworkers that I talk to a whole lot. So just getting that in-person, face-to-face interaction through, in my example, dance class has been key. We really, really need that socialization, especially in these cold winter months. Otherwise, we start not feeling like ourselves. We start feeling distant. I personally tend to kind of spiral and start second guessing people's opinions about me. So very unhealthy when I'm not around people. So forcing yourself to get out, saying yes to the plans, for even just going to someone's house to play games. Things like this can really up that social battery. And even if you feel like you have no energy to talk to people, you'll be surprised at how good it feels to just be around another human. And that's even if you do live with someone, right? Sam and I live together. And sometimes I just need a change of pace. Sam's great, but we're so comfortable with each other that sometimes we just need that extra socialization, whether it be with a friend or with a teammate or just with random people in an exercise class. It really can change the way that you feel about yourself and that you feel about just getting out of the house. So really, really recommend just getting some socialization in. So I kind of alluded to it in the end of that piece, but number 5, unfortunately, as much as we hate that it works so well, is going to be exercising or moving your body. And I always say this kind of more as a joke than being genuinely serious, but isn't it so unfortunate that things that are healthy for us actually make us feel better? Come on. You're telling me that when I actually get up and exercise and move my body and eat well and take care of myself that I feel better? No way. But no, seriously, moving and exercising has also very much been a game changer for me, and I think it can be for a lot of people too. If you think about just the nature of how we act as humans in the summer months versus the winter months, summer, you're typically out and about, you're walking a lot more, you're going to a lot more social events, you're spending time maybe playing activities or playing sports, or just instead of maybe driving from place to place, you're walking. We just get naturally a lot more movement in our bodies during the summer months, even if we're not actively choosing to go exercise or work out or things like that. You're just moving more because it is more pleasant outside to move. Versus in the winter months, maybe it's getting darker earlier, so you don't feel safe to walk somewhere, or in the case of Chicago right now, it's negative wind chill and you feel like you're going to freeze your face off if you walk somewhere. You just have a lot less natural movement in these winter months or during like seasonal depression and things like that. So, as much as it can sometimes suck to get off the couch or to get out of bed and go down to the treadmill or go do a workout video in your room, it seriously does make a world of difference to get that physical activity in. It helps with fueling your body. It helps you get better quality sleep. It helps you balance out your meals more. It helps your body tune into when it's actually hungry or thirsty or things like that. Like, it helps you socialize in a lot of situations. Like I mentioned with dance class, like it gets me out of the house and I get to talk to people while moving my body and getting my heart rate up. So, like I said, it sucks to admit that exercising actually does make you emotionally feel better, but it really, really does. And it doesn't have to be a lot of movement. It really can just be as simple as getting enough steps in for the day or making an intention to maybe stretch before bed or maybe when you wake up in the morning. Very minimal activity is needed to remind the body that it's moving and that it's a human. So even just simple stretches, or even if you really, really don't want to work out and you just sit on the couch and maybe you do arm raises, arm lifts, maybe you stretch side to side, just roll the wrists and the ankles out, or maybe like grab your toes. The smallest movement can just remind your body, hey, you're still moving, you're still functioning. Let's not go into major I hate myself mode quite yet. So exercising and moving is truly a game changer. No matter how little or how much you do of it, I definitely recommend just getting a little bit of movement in, whatever that looks like for you. And so the last tangible kind of step that I take before I get into my kind of silly step is going to be sharing your thoughts with someone you trust, or maybe you just journal down your thoughts or keep a record of how you're feeling. And this section alone is the primary reason why I wanted to make this episode, because like I said, a couple weeks ago, maybe last week or so, I was feeling so incredibly down and different and just not good. And I've been in this place before, and thankfully I know the tools and things I need to do to get myself out of this place. But it was concerning, and I hadn't felt this low and unlike myself and almost fake. I felt like a fake person. And I haven't felt like that in a really, really long time. And it was scary. Like I knew that I was in a safe place and that I had a hold of things just fine. But I really, really wanted to just put my feelings out there to someone that I knew would understand, because I didn't know that it was seasonal depression. You don't really always recognize it right away. You don't realize, oh, I'm not going crazy. It's just winter. Like, I'm completely normal. My reactions are valid. But when you start feeling that way, you don't always recognize it at first. So this step of sharing how you feel to someone you trust is so, so important, especially if these feelings are new to you and you've never experienced the winter blues before, or you've never seen the other side of it. Maybe this is the first time and you feel like, oh my gosh, am I going to be stuck feeling like this forever? First of all, I promise you're not. There's always going to be a better day ahead. But if you don't realize that, or even if you do realize that and you just can't convince yourself that things are going to be okay, I highly, highly recommend just letting a trusted friend or a couple people know in your life how you're feeling. And thankfully, I knew I was being irrational, and I knew that this wasn't like my actual personality, but like it was how I was showing up and it was how I was presenting myself. So I had to let these people know, hey, this is going on. I trust you. I promise I'm fine, but if I'm acting different, this is why. And when I tell you, these people, they put my head back straight on my shoulders. They were like, listen, it's the middle of winter, it's 0 degrees outside, and you're fine. Trust me, you're fine. And like, just hearing them say that and hearing the validation that I'm not crazy and that this is such a normal thing to happen in the winter, especially when you're up in the northern areas like we are, it was just so comforting and validating to hear. And I feel like it's so important that other people hear that as well. So that was kind of the motivation behind me choosing this topic for this episode, because we know it exists. And a lot of the times we're aware that we're going through it and suffering from it, but just hearing that other people are experiencing the same thing and hearing that you're not crazy or hearing that your opinions are completely valid is so important. And who knows if I would have been feeling this much better about myself if I hadn't acknowledged and shared to those people that I was feeling so down and not like myself, because thankfully everyone that I've shared this to has been incredibly supportive, and all the people in my life are gonna support me and be there for me. And I know that like they've gone through similar things, so they understand and they can give me advice. But anyways, wow, long tangent. Basically, the whole point of that was just find someone you can trust. And even if you don't feel like you have someone you can trust with these kind of vulnerable feelings, journal it out. Just put it on paper. And you can look down and see especially when it gets to that springtime and it's beautiful outside and the sun is shining and you're moving around and socializing and living normal life, you can look back and see that you have overcome this and that it was temporary and that it was just your body's human instinctual response to it being winter. It is completely normal. It is so common. And that's why, like, if you Google seasonal depression or winter blues, this is something that is so common that 90% of the time it is self-diagnosed. Like, everybody is going through it in the winter. And you're not alone. And it is completely normal. And it is okay to feel gross or feel like a hibernating animal or feel just not like yourself, because it's temporary. And it's because we don't have the sunlight, it's because it's gross outside, and it's because you're a human. So just give yourself the grace, acknowledge that you're feeling this way, and also acknowledge that it's normal. Even though you feel awful and weird and you don't feel like yourself, promise you, when springtime comes around, you're gonna feel like yourself again, and maybe even sooner. Maybe January wraps up and it's not -0 anymore. Wait. It can't be -0. Okay, maybe it's not -10 anymore. Maybe you get up to like a comfortable 30 degrees and you're like, wow, it's really warm now. Like, I feel good. I'm ready to go for a walk. Yeah, sure, you're still bundled up in all your winter gear, but I promise you, sharing how you feel with someone you trust, journaling it down, just acknowledging you feel gross and not like yourself can be a huge step in starting to feel better. Even if nothing in your lifestyle changes, at least you've had that internal conversation and been like, hey, I'm not normal, but this isn't a forever thing. This is a right now thing. So that gets a little into like the whole mental health spectrum, but that's a message that I would encourage you to think about constantly, but specifically with the winter blues and the seasonal depression kind of time of the year. It's so important to feel not alone and to feel like you're normal and you're not crazy for experiencing what you have. So I really wanted to get that message out there. Specifically, one for myself to hear and to go back and just reflect on, but for everyone to hear as well. Anyone who's listening, I'm sure can take away something from that message. So just let that sit in with you. Take from it what you will. Finally, we're on to the last little silly solution for the winter blues or the seasonal depression. And that is going to be just counting down to when it's spring again, or when it's sunshine again, or when it's warm outside again. Sometimes, even if none of these other 6 steps have worked for you, the only thing you can do is just wait till it gets better and have a countdown. So it was funny. I put a post on the podcast Instagram recently about my quote regarding I'm not crazy, it's just winter. And thankfully, from the day I posted that, only 60 days till spring. So if we're going by the dates on the calendar, in 2 months, I will feel better. If we're going just simply based on dates and numbers, I will feel better in 60 days at the very longest. So it's things like that. Maybe it's silly. It's not scientifically based. It's not going to actually make you feel better in the present moment, but just giving yourself that timeline of hope, even if it feels like it doesn't exist and it'll never be warm or sunny again, it definitely can feel like that, especially up here in the north. But if you give yourself that timeline, only 60 more days, only 59 more days, and you can make it like a little fun countdown, I promise you will feel better due to the fact that you feel like there is some sort of hope for a better future, hope for sunnier days, hope for warmth, and just hope to feel normal and like yourself again. So that's really all I have for you today. Unfortunately, I, like many others, am someone who does suffer from a lot of winter blues, and it's okay to just feel gross and not feel like yourself during this time. But I wanted to put out this episode kind of in solidarity to just let you know it is so normal to feel like this, and things are going to feel weird, things are going to feel gross, and you're going to kind of feel derailed from your productivity and your healthy habits, especially in months like this where everything in the climate and in the environment is telling you to just stay home and do nothing. You can push through it. If you believe in yourself, I believe in you, and I've come through on the other side plenty of times. I believe that you can too. So, with that being said, I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully you have gathered something helpful from this episode, or even if you haven't, I just hope you feel less alone in battling the gross, cold, disgusting winter that affects us, at least in the United States, but I'm sure many other parts of the world as well. But let me know what you think. Thank you again for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.